My name is Frank Bennett, a Chicago granddad. On my daughter's wedding night, my grandson gripped my sleeve and whispered, "Grandpa, stop this wedding." If you've ever smiled while your heart shattered to protect family, don't scroll, subscribe. Someone you love might need this warning. 30 minutes later, police walked in.
Chicago looked like a postcard that afternoon. The river caught the last of the winter sun and tossed it back at the skyline like confetti. Inside the glass and brick Skyline Pavilion on the near north side, a jazz trio played standards while people I loved clinked champagne in the glow of string lights. And then, Mason, my 15-year-old grandson who always noticed what adults missed, appeared beside me with a face the color of paper. "Grandpa Frank," he breathed, "we have to stop this wedding." A laugh rippled from a nearby table. A photographer called for one more with the cousins. On the dance floor, Elise, my daughter, my entire life, rested her head against her new husband's shoulder while he held her just a touch too tight. Cole Maddox, the man who'd promised her calm seas after a decade of storms, the man who never shook my hand without squeezing. I steadied Mason by his elbow. "Take a breath, tell me why." His voice was a whisper, a confession. "Because the guy Mom married, he's somebody else. He's lying about everything." Just like that, the music felt wrong. The room tilted. I saw everything at once, brighter, uglier. The way Cole had watched me all night from over Elisa's head. The three men in tailored suits who stuck to the corners and never smiled with their eyes. The way the seating chart placed me at a back table like a distant cousin instead of a father. Across the room, Cole lifted a champagne flute as if he owned the building. His smile flashed for the crowd. He was playing the part of the groom in an expensive production, our production. I'd seen this script before, back when Elise was 29 and married a safe man named Evan, who turned out to be anything but. That time, I'd kept my mouth shut until I couldn't. This time, I'd tried to speak early and lost my daughter for it. A violin thrummed low. The city glowed outside like a promise, and I felt the old thing rise in me. Not anger, not even fear. Resolve. A different kind of revenge story was writing itself in real time. Not about hurting anyone back, but about protecting what was left of us and letting karma finish the job. "Look at me," I told Mason, steady and quiet. "We'll fix this, but we have to be careful." He nodded, blinked hard, and pointed toward the terrace. I heard him. "Outside. He's planning something tonight." I forced my face calm and stood. Across the room, Cole noticed us and changed trajectory, bringing the lease with him like a prize from a carnival booth. His grin said neighborly, his eyes said cornered animal. "Family," he boomed, opening his arms. "Come get cake." For a heartbeat, I saw two paths open up in front of me. One where I made a scene and lost Elise forever, and one where I played along, smiled for the pictures, and quietly brought a wolf to the door. I tucked a napkin into my pocket, the way I had the day she left for college. One small motion to hide the shaking. "Cake sounds good," I said, voice even, while the father in me screamed. If you've ever had to smile through heartbreak to protect someone you love, hit like. And don't scroll, subscribe, because this is the kind of emotional storytelling and karma story someone else needs tonight. 3 months earlier, I walked into my daughter's Lincoln Park apartment and met the man who would try to dismantle our family. He was already sitting in my chair. It was one of those gray Chicago evenings when the streets smell like wet stone and coffee. I knocked on Elise's door, holding a pie from the bakery we used to celebrate with after good report cards. The door opened, and he was right there, tall, immaculate, handsome in a catalog way, Cole Maddox. "So, you're Elise's dad." His gaze slid down my thrift store jacket, landing on my wedding band like it had overstayed its welcome. Then he pulled Elise against him with lazy ownership. "She told me you're traditional." I stuck out my hand. "Frank Bennett." He let my hand hang in the air a beat too long before shaking it like he was doing me a favor. Behind him, the apartment wore changes I didn't recognize. My blue armchair relocated, family photos replaced by abstract prints. Elise hugged me quick, her cheeks pink, her smile brittle. Dinner was lemon chicken on chipped plates, the table crowded by the weight of new rules. Cole held court. He worked in consulting, the kind that never had a clear definition but always sounded rich. When Elise mentioned Mason's science fair win, Cole detoured into a story about a client in L.A. who'd paid him 5 figures for a phone call. When I asked about his family, he smiled like the topic was tender and said they'd passed. All of them. The first warning bell wasn't his arrogance, it was how he divided the room. Elise cleared plates too fast. Mason kept his eyes down. When I sat near my blue armchair, Cole had already draped his jacket over it like a flag planted on a hill. "Mr. Bennett," he said, clapping me gently on the shoulder, "change can be hard, but that's what growth is, right?" "Frank is fine," I answered. I watched his smile tighten. By the time I left, the February sky was spitting icy rain, and the city seemed to sigh with relief around me. Down in the parking lot, I stared at my steering wheel until the leather warmed under my hands. Elise called the next morning before I'd finished my coffee. "Dad, we need to talk." She arrived 10 minutes later, keys jangling, hair unbrushed. She stood in my kitchen like a prosecutor. "You hated him," she said, without hello. I could feel it. "I don't hate anyone," I answered, too softly for the moment. "But he talks to you like you're smaller than you are." "Stop!" She slammed the counter just once. "You did this with Evan. You made me doubt everything. You don't get to break my happiness again. Cole is good to me." I wanted to say, "Good to you is a man who leaves your chair where it is, a man who asks questions and then waits for the answers." Instead, I swallowed the truth, the way you do when fire catches the curtains and you have to figure out how to move everyone to the door before you shout. "Then be happy," I said. It came out like surrender. She lifted her chin, eyes blazing with a hurt that looked like mine. "He asked me to marry him. I said yes. Support me or lose me." When she left, the house went silent in that deep Midwestern way, like snow had just dropped over the whole block. I took my coat and walked to Montrose Harbor. Seagulls traced lazy circles over gray water. Couples in puffy jackets passed, laughing. Somewhere a dog barked like it had good news. I sat and let the cold bite my face, thinking of the day Elise learned to ride a bike, the day she lost her first tooth, the day she cried because Evan moved out. I wondered when my honesty became her enemy. My phone buzzed. A text from Mason. "Grandpa, can we talk? Something about Cole is off." If you've ever been accused of ruining a loved one's happiness just for asking hard questions, hit subscribe. You can skip this USA drama if you want, but one day, you'll wish you hadn't when betrayal hits your family.
That afternoon, my grandson told me something I couldn't unhear. "He has 2 phones, Grandpa, and he's been studying Mom's bank statements." Mason showed up lugging his backpack like it weighed as much as his worry. He grew 3 inches this year, all elbows and good intentions. We stood in my small kitchen, steam rising from cocoa the way it did when he was little and believed marshmallows could fix everything. "He acts different when Mom isn't around," he started, eyes on the mug. Like he's casing the place. He goes through drawers, he stares at our family photos like he's trying to memorize them, and he texts constantly, but only when she's in the shower or putting on makeup. The word casing burned through me like whiskey. "What else?" Mason lowered his voice, conspiratorially. He has 2 phones. One is the one Mom knows about. The other, he hides it in his gym bag. I saw him take it out when he thought I was at Marcus's. The second number? I asked, too fast. I couldn't see, but he was talking to someone about investments, and he asked Mom how much your house is worth. Mason's eyes found mine. He asked about your pension, too. Chicago's winter twilight settled outside the window like ash. The street lights blinked awake, haloing the snow left along the curb. A CTA bus hummed past, lights warm against the cold. In the glow, Mason looked older than 15. "You can't let him know you've noticed," I said, keeping my voice steady. "Be polite, be normal, pay attention." "Are you going to tell Mom?" He hated the answer before I said it. "Not yet." His shoulders slumped, then straightened. He nodded. Quiet courage. I thought about all the nights Elise had left him to sleep at my place when things with Evan got loud. How he'd lined up his toy cars in a row and asked me if praying worked on Tuesdays.
Later, after he left for a sleepover, the house felt too big for one person. I drifted to the hallway of family photos, the museum of our better days. Elise with her missing front tooth, Elise in a cap and gown, Elise on a beach in Florida, laughing with sunburned shoulders, Elise in a white dress the first time, when safe turned into betrayal. The photographs watched me like witnesses at a trial. Cole's profile lived in my head now. The calculated slights, the careful performance, the speed. 6 months from nice to meet you to I do is a sprint, not a love story. I poured tea I didn't drink and listened to the radiator knock like it had opinions. An idea flickered. Call a private investigator. I remembered the ex-cop who lives 2 doors down, the way he measures people out of habit. But the thought of Elise finding out I'd hired someone to surveil her life? That would be a betrayal she might never forgive. This had to be a family matter, handled with soft hands and sharp eyes. So I went with a different plan, the one my late wife, June, would have called the quiet way. Step back, stop pushing, let him think he's winning. Be ready when he gets sloppy. Let karma carry the heavy end of this revenge story. When my phone finally buzzed, the text from Elise I'd been waiting for, it said, "Dinner Friday? You, me, Cole? Let's start over." Start over sounded like a peace treaty where one side surrendered. But sometimes, to protect the people you love in a USA drama like this, you smile for the camera and take a step back, so you can leap forward at the right time. If this made your gut drop, tap like, and don't leave without subscribing. Deep, emotional stories like this help someone else feel less alone. At a neighborhood diner with cracked vinyl booths and framed Cubs pennants, the man who claimed to love my daughter asked me to fund my own replacement. The Lakeshore Diner smelled like coffee and pancakes and 100 first dates. It's the kind of place where the waitress calls you honey and doesn't take anybody's nonsense. I got there early, put my back to the wall the way June used to tease me for, and watched the door. Elise arrived at 7 sharp, looking like she hadn't slept. Cole came with an energy that felt like a show opening. Big gestures, brighter smile, a little too loud. He slid in across from me, leaving Elise to play referee in the middle. Frank, let's bury the hatchet, yeah? We're family now." "Works for me," I said. The waitress poured coffee without asking. Cole ordered salmon like a man testing a small-town theater sound system. I ordered meatloaf. Elise ordered soup and picked at it like it might bite. Midway through plans, Cole switched gears. "We're talking venues," he declared, as if announcing an IPO. Skyline Pavilion was such a good call, babe. But to do it right, we're looking at 12 grand just for the room. At catering, flowers, band, all told, we're at 30 to 40. He took a sip, watching me over the rim. A woman like Elise deserves that. Elise's spoon stopped mid-air. Cole, we talked. We did, he said smoothly. And your salary is solid, sweetheart, but your dad is comfortable, right? He turned to me like he was discussing weather. Retired, nice house, pension. It's not just a wedding, it's an investment in the family. The words hung between us, heavy. He'd made a public ask, so I couldn't say no without making Elise choose. He was counting on me to be the man she believed I was, generous, steady, easily shamed. I imagined June's laugh. She would have told me to call his bluff, but one look at Elise's face, hopeful, terrified, trying to make everyone okay, and I swallowed pride. Pride never saved a daughter.
"I'll help," I said. Cole's smile didn't reach his eyes. Elise exhaled like she'd been underwater. Around us, forks clinked on plates, a mother cut pancakes for a toddler, a TV in the corner whispered about lake-effect snow. Everything normal, right up until you notice the undertow. Cole talked flowers and playlists and bar packages like he was writing an expense report. When the check came, he reached for his wallet with great ceremony, then paused while I picked it up. His watch flashed in the diner's harsh light. My patience flashed harder in my chest. In the parking lot, Elise hugged me too long. "Thank you," she whispered into my coat. "I know you don't get him yet, but he loves me." Out on the sidewalk, Cole shook my hand and squeezed too hard. "Family first," he said. It sounded like a threat. On the drive home, Lakeshore Drive unfolded like a ribbon of black glass. Street lamps cut the night into pieces. I thought about the kind of revenge story people misunderstand, the kind that doesn't look like fire or fury, but like a man writing a check and waiting, trusting the truth to crawl out into the light when it's ready. When I pulled into my driveway, a text buzzed from Mason. He asked Mom for online banking passwords. She laughed it off. He didn't. If you've ever paid a bill to keep the peace while your heart screamed no, drop a like and subscribe. Love and betrayal aren't just headlines. They're lessons we share so others don't fall the same way. By the time the band struck up the first dance, the avalanche was already moving. The groom's toast wasn't a thank you, it was a warning. The Skyline Pavilion is all glass and promise, like you could hold the whole city in your hands if you try hard enough. Elise looked incredible, the kind of radiant that makes strangers tear up. When she walked down the aisle, I almost believed I'd been wrong. Almost. But the reception told the truth faster than the vows. My seat was in the back, with a cluster of distant relatives and the one coworker who insists she's like family. The head table belonged to Cole, expansive and gleaming, the center of gravity. Midway through the evening, he stood to toast. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, voice carrying like he owned the river. "Some people called us foolish for moving fast." His eyes skipped right over me. But love doesn't check the calendar. It jumps. It trusts. Polite applause. Elise's smile flickered at the edges. The three men in suits hovered near the bar, never straying far from each other or the exits. They didn't look like college buddies. They looked like men who don't want to be remembered. "May I have this dance?" Cole asked Elise, loud enough for the room. He spun her slow, dipped her like a Broadway poster, and looked over her shoulder straight at me. The smile he gave wasn't joy. It was calculation. It was a chess player who'd moved a piece he couldn't wait for you to notice. "Grandpa," Mason said, suddenly at my elbow. "I need air." He made for the terrace, pale, shirt untucked in a way his mother would pretend not to see.
I watched him step into the cold and vanish behind the glass. 10 minutes later, the doors slapped open, and he rushed back in, breath coming quick, eyes huge. "We have to stop this wedding," he whispered, voice cracking. "Grandpa, his name isn't Cole. It's Daniel Pierce. He said it. He was outside with those guys, bragging. He said he has warrants. Phoenix, Seattle. He marries women and empties their accounts on the honeymoon." The room bowed around me. My knees warmed and then went cold. The band slid into an old Motown song. Servers paraded cake on white plates. Somewhere, someone laughed hard, oblivious. "You're sure?" I asked, because a man has to be certain before he detonates a life. "I heard him," Mason said, adamant. "He said Daniel Pierce might be in the system, but Cole Maddox is clean." And he laughed. "Grandpa, he even knows where Mom keeps her banking info. In her purse. He's going to take everything in Mexico." The trap was shut. The teeth sunk in. But the one thing you learn as a parent in Chicago, in Savannah, in a small town in Iowa, is that you can still crawl toward daylight even when the walls feel like they're moving. I stood up. My body remembered the weight of Elise at 6 months, at 6 years, at 36. Cole saw us moving and cut the distance in half, smile coming like a knife. "Family," he grinned, bringing Elise along. "Come cut cake." "Just a minute," I said, gentle to my daughter. "I need 5 minutes alone. It's about your safety." Her eyes shifted, annoyance to worry, worry to something like fear. "What is it, Dad?" Cole slid his hand to her waist and squeezed. "Whatever family business you have, Frank, it can wait till tomorrow." "Let him talk," Elise said, and her voice had that clear tone she used as a teenager when she'd made up her mind. For the first time that night, the mask slipped on his face. "If this moment made your hand shake, you're not alone. Like, subscribe, share your thoughts. This is storytelling for adults who've weathered love and betrayal and still believe in healing and redemption." We shut the door of the bridal prep room, and I gave my daughter the truth, raw and impossible. The man you married is a wanted criminal. The laughter from the reception floated under the door like a cruel soundtrack. In the mirror, Elise looked like a magazine cover printed on glass. Her hands trembled as she touched her earring, the ones June left her the year she died. "Okay, Dad," she said, voice tight. "You have 5 minutes." "His name isn't Cole," I said, swallowing around a throat that suddenly felt too small. "It's Daniel Pierce. He has active warrants. He targets women like you, smart, successful, overwhelmed. He marries fast and disappears with everything. Mason heard him outside bragging about it. He knows your bank info is in your purse. He plans to train it in Mexico." Elise shook her head as if she could rattle the words loose. "No, no." She fumbled for her phone. "I'll prove it." We typed Daniel Pierce, fraud, Phoenix, Seattle, with fingers that didn't feel like our own. The first image made the air go thin. Mugshot lighting. Same eyes, same mouth, different name. Underneath, headlines like wounds. Phoenix widow loses life savings to marriage scammer. Seattle teacher targeted in elaborate romance fraud. FBI seeks fugitive connected to multi-state embezzlement. Elise made a sound I hadn't heard since she was 7 and dropped her favorite doll on our porch and watched it crack. She slid into a chair and clutched the hem of her dress like it was the only thing holding her to the earth. "I married a ghost. I married a lie." "Listen to me," I said, kneeling so she had to see my eyes. "This isn't your fault. He's good at this. This is his job. And it ends tonight." She breathed, in and out, slower than before. "What do we do?" "We call," I said, quietly. I dialed 911. My voice went cool, the way it did when a kid at my old shop class got a hand too close to a saw. "This is Frank Bennett. We're at the Skyline Pavilion on North Water Street. My daughter just married a man whose real name is Daniel Pierce. He has active warrants for fraud and embezzlement. He's here now, with 3 associates I believe may also be involved. Please come discreetly." "Units are en route," the dispatcher said. "Maintain normal appearance. Don't engage. We'll take it from there." Elise stared at her reflection until her spine straightened. I watched as the bride disappeared, and the woman I raised stepped into the glass. She dabbed her cheeks, she fixed her lipstick, she tucked a piece of hair behind her ear with steady calm. "What if he runs?" she asked. "Then he runs. But he won't get far, and you'll never have to look back and wonder if you did the right thing." She nodded. "What about Mason? We keep him close, and we don't act different." Elise slid off the ring and looked at it, turning the diamond in the soft light. "I wish Mom were here," she said, voice catching. "She is," I told her. "In your spine, in your stubbornness, in your intuition that finally yelled loud enough to hear." She took my hand, small again for a heartbeat. "I should have trusted you. I trusted you right now. That's enough." We stepped back into a room that didn't know it was a crime scene yet. The band swelled, guests laughed. Cole's voice carried, too big, too bright. He spotted us and crossed half the floor before we'd moved 3 feet. "There you are," he said, sliding his arm around Elise. "I was worried." "Bathroom," she smiled. "This dress has more hooks than a bait shop." My phone buzzed. Units approaching. I caught Elise's eye and nodded once. She squeezed my fingers, then let go.
If you felt that switch from panic to resolve, hit like. Subscribe if you believe in karma stories where truth wins, because someone out there needs the courage you feel right now. The officers walked in quietly, like winter slipping under a door. 10 minutes later, the groom was face down on polished concrete with handcuffs on his wrists. The first 2 officers entered like they belonged there. Straight backs, calm faces, tuxedoed guests parting around them like river reeds. They didn't shout, they didn't hurry. They approached our table and asked, "Cole Maddox?" with a pleasant smile that didn't touch their eyes. "That's me," he said, voice sanded smooth. "Officers, everything okay? We're just celebrating love." He winked at a table of Elise's co-workers, and they glowed, not understanding yet. "We'd like to speak with you privately," the lead officer said. They moved toward the entrance, where the winter air knifed in each time the door opened. The second officer lingered an arm's length behind Cole, his hand near the cuffs. I watched Elise take Mason's hand. I watched those 3 men in suits glance at each other, then at the exits, and drift toward shadows like they'd been practiced since childhood. I watched Cole's face as the officer turned a tablet. I saw the exact second recognition landed, when his mouth went hard. "Daniel Pierce, you're under arrest for multiple counts of fraud and embezzlement. We have active warrants in Arizona and Washington. Please turn around." "This is a mistake," he barked, loud for the room. "I'm Cole, He broke and ran. Of course he did. Predators always count on speed. He didn't make it 10 steps. The second officer moved the way athletes do when everything lines up, clean, efficient. They went down, a tangle of black tux and blue uniform, the air smashing out of the room in a collective gasp. "You have the right to remain silent," I heard, and my legs forgot how to be legs for a second. They hauled him up, rumpled and snarling, and he found me like a compass finds north. "You," he spat, "old man, you did this. You'll pay." "No," I said, "I already paid, and this is the change." Elise stepped forward, signal clear even without a microphone. The band cut the music. "Everyone," she said, voice steady, "I need to tell you the truth. The man I married tonight is a criminal who planned to take everything and disappear. My father and my son saved me."
Silence, then murmurs, then a strange thing. Applause from the back table,
where the waitress from the diner had somehow found a seat near my sister's hairdresser. People don't clap for heartbreak, they clap for courage. An officer approached Elise, gentle. She slid off the ring and put it in an evidence bag. He has 3 associates, she told him, chin up. They left through the back. I can describe them. The way she said it sounded like a statement to the universe. I'm done being a target. Outside, the cold bit like it had teeth. Through the glass, we watched them load him into a car, still shouting, still charming, still dangerous. Light bounced off the river. Snow started to spit like confetti that had changed its mind mid-air. Mason pressed into my side, all elbows and relief. We did it, he whispered, not to brag or strut, just to mark the moment the avalanche finally hit level ground. The room slowly rebooted. Women found their purses, men helped grandmothers into coats. Elise stood in the middle of it all like a lighthouse. People came, hugged her, apologized for not seeing, for not knowing. She kept saying the same thing. It's okay. We do better when we know better. I looked at the table full of untouched wedding cake and thought about all the times life hands you sugar on the day you need salt. And I thanked whatever force decides these things, that truth still gets a say in the end. If you've ever waited for karma to show up and finally heard the knock, smash that like. Don't leave without subscribing. Stories like this USA drama remind us what it means to be human when love and betrayal collide. Chicago exhaled. Inside the pavilion, the lights felt softer, the music gentler. A few guests stayed, our people. They helped take down centerpieces and packed up favors that suddenly looked strange. White boxes with gold ribbons and E and C embossed on top. Elise plucked each letter off with her nail, leaving a simple E. We sat at the back table, me, Elise, Mason, the one where Cole had intentionally set me far away from the head. It felt right now. It felt like reclaiming land he'd taken. "I'm sorry," Elise said, finally letting her face fall to the truth. "Dad, I'm so sorry I didn't listen." I slid my hand over hers. "You listened tonight. That's what matters." Tears spilled fast, and then she laughed, hiccuping her way through a mess that would someday be a story to tell over coffee. "Do we get the money back?" she asked, practical as always. "Some," I said. "It'll be a fight, but you're not fighting alone." I pictured insurance calls and police reports, and our ex-cop neighbors stopping by with advice. I pictured a long stretch of quiet evenings, soup on the stove, Netflix and blankets. The boring safety you crave after you've been to war. Mason cleared his throat. "Mom," he whispered, like he was asking permission to speak. "I heard him because I went outside, because I couldn't breathe. I thought you'd be mad if I messed up your night." She turned to him like the sun. "You saved me, buddy. You didn't mess up a thing." She pressed her forehead to his. "I'm proud of you." We talked then, really talked, about Evan and how his cheating had taught Elise to ignore her instincts, about June's death and how the grief made us cling and push away in the same embrace, about the quiet revenge that looks less like fire and more like telling the truth to a room full of people and refusing to be ashamed. Near midnight, a few of Elise's friends convinced the band to play one more. Not a love song, not a breakup song, just a song about hometowns and late-night drives, and the way you can rebuild anything if you decide not to quit. Elise took my hand. I took Mason's. We swayed, 3 stiff people who never learned to dance, laughing and crying in equal measure. Outside, snow fell for real this time, soft, forgiving, like the sky had decided to cover the city's bruises for a few hours so we could sleep.
We loaded gifts into my trunk. Elise took off her shoes and walked barefoot across the cold floor, carrying her life out in boxes, leaving the rest behind. As we locked up, she turned and looked at the room one last time. "I wanted a fairy tale," she said. "No bitterness in it, just truth."
"You got one," I said. "The version where the wolf gets dragged into the daylight and the grandmother and the girl go home together." On the drive down Lakeshore, the lake was a dark sheet with little white knives in it. The city glowed like it always does when you finally see it for what it is. Not perfect, but yours. Mason fell asleep in the back, his mouth open, jacket thrown over him like a makeshift blanket. Elise stared out the window. "How do I trust again?" she asked. "You don't," I said. "Not at first. You trust yourself, you trust time, you trust your kid. And when your heart's ready, it'll let somebody else in. Not because you forgot the heartbreak, because you survived it." She nodded, tears sliding quiet as snowfall. "Thank you," she said, "for not giving up on me, even when I told you to." "Never," I said. "That's the deal. Parenthood is the only contract you signed with no exit clause." We pulled into my driveway, the one that Cole had asked too many questions about. The porch light was on. June's wind chime played a note like approval. Inside, I made grilled cheese the way Elise used to beg for on snow days. We ate at the counter, feet touching like we were back in 1998, watching the Bulls on a tiny TV that only picked up half the channels. Before sleep, I stood in the hallway of photos. I added one, Elise in her dress, mascara streaked, chin lifted, Mason beside her, eyes brave. Me behind them, smaller than both, exactly where I belong. I thought about the words you use when you want people to click. Revenge story, heartbreaking betrayal, emotional storytelling USA drama, love and betrayal, healing and redemption. Tonight, they weren't tags. They were our life. If this ending gave you hope, like this video. Don't leave without subscribing, because someone out there is 2 chapters behind you, and your click might be the breadcrumb that leads them home. And tell me in the comments, where are you watching from, and who would you protect this fiercely if it came to it?